気分は最高だけどびっくり世界がどう
Welcome to the Super Sentai Brothers. This is episode 15 of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger, the internet's best and only podcast dedicated to Denji Sentai Megaranger. Every week we watch an episode of the show and we share our thoughts with you, the listener. My name is Matt J, and with me as always is my co-host and brother Dave. Dave, how you doing today?
It's great. Doing great, man. It's a beautiful day. It feels like fall.
Gorgeous.
Today,
Yeah.
which is amazing because fall is the best season. And anybody who says otherwise is a fool or a charlatan.
Early
frankly,
fall. It doesn't get better than early fall.
It doesn't get better than early fall. I braised an oxtail today.
I mean,
I
you
had bought
know,
it a-
Dave,
I
that
bought
I
it-
am the king of summer, of course, but, you know.
Yeah. Yes. I did. I had bought this oxtail like a month ago, and then when I got it home and put it in the freezer, I was like, this was a bad time to buy oxtail. Because like the only way to cook oxtail reasonably is like to braise it. Like you don't want to braise if it's like 95 degrees and humid. And it was cool today, and I was like, I'm braising that oxtail. It was delicious.
You know what else is delicious, Dave? Is episode 15 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called See Through It, the Mecha of Genius High. But of course, Dave, before we get to that, as always, there is our officially award-winning opening segment. Shining in the heavens, there are 5 stars. What, Dave, is our first star of the week?
First star of the week, Matt, is Isolation Update. Isolation Update. So the truth is that I don't actually have much of an isolation update aside from the fact that I did just get some very good news, which is my isolation is continuing. I'm a teacher, and there has been some question like, oh, are we going back to school in person? Are we not? Like, what's up? I don't know why it was a question. I mean, I do know why. It would be very convenient for a lot of people if kids were back in school, but like the data is so wildly against that.
Prioritizing convenience at this point is not necessarily the wisest course of action.
Well, I don't know, Matt. Maybe it's what we've been doing so far, so maybe if we just stay the course of prioritizing convenience over good data, then somehow, inexplicably, it will work out. Footnote, it definitely will not work out. Anyways, I did just get an update from my administration that, like, no, we have listened to your demands to not go back in person. And so at least the very first quarter, so the first 9 weeks is entirely online. And then we'll sort of reevaluate kind of from there. I wish I had a little more guidance. I'm still experiencing some like weird fuzziness and anxiety over like what exactly my job is going to look like, because they haven't told us that. But at least it is online, so that's good.
That's fine. You got another like week or two before you have to start and know what your
like
job
a whole
is, right?
Week. Yeah, it's gonna be great. How's your isolation going?
Oh, my main isolation update, Dave, is that at one or 2 points recently, I was not isolated. I went somewhere.
You were able to come over. It was great.
Yeah, I came over to your place for my birthday. It was nice. The other time I was unisolated was I took the week off of work just because I just needed like a mental break. I wasn't planning to go anywhere, but I did end up going somewhere, which is that 2 hours...
Fun and exciting.
Yeah, 2 hours into my vacation, I took a quick trip into my front steps and smacked my forehead against them, cutting my forehead open, requiring 3 stitches and a trip to the hospital. So that's 2 trips, Dave. 1 into the stairs and 1 to the hospital. So I guess actually I took 3 trips this time.
Neither of those are great trips.
1 to your place, 1 into the stairs, and 1 to the hospital.
Well, okay, the one to my place was fun.
Oh, that was very fun, yeah. So yeah, that was the first like evening of my vacation. So that sort of threw off my week, which is actually why we did not have an episode last week. I am fine. I just had like a swollen head and didn't feel like recording for a while. But we are back now.
It's legit.
And
You got some stitches in your forehead.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very cool scar. It's a very action hero.
Yeah, it's like an inch-long scar sort of horizontally above my right eyebrow. It's a pretty good one, I think. I hope. Yeah, and that was my isolation update. It was okay, you know. I got to see a little bit of the baseball game that night at the hospital, which is nice because I don't have cable at home.
Because you were at the hospital.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you have seen the baseball game?
No, I was
hospital.
sitting in a hospital room waiting for a doctor to come put stitches in my forehead, and I was like, oh, there's a baseball game tonight. Check it out. I think we won.
I still cannot, after the Indians lost the World Series in, 2016?
Yeah.
And it was, I can't
a lot
anymore.
of disappointing
We've talked
things
about
from
it.
right near the end of 2016.
Yeah. Just a lot of bad stuff just happened then.
But you know what, Dave?
Wow.
You know what? Boy, oh boy. Took a turn there. Do we want to back up before I said that, or do we want to leave all this in the show?
Do you mean there like in this podcast or there in 2016? Because either one works.
I mean, either one would be great, frankly. Although now you've said a great joke, and I would feel bad about cutting all this from the episode.
So, Matt, what is our second star of the week?
Dave, our second star of the week is our newest continuing segment. It's Bun Vulcan.
Welcome to Bun Vulcan. So, Matt, what's your Bun Vulcan update?
My Bun Vulcan update, not much. I have continued to make those baguettes. My only real update is that I brought some of them over to your place when I was there for my birthday, so that
they were great.
So I could share them and get compliments and have you tell other people that they're good, instead of just me continuing to tell people that they're good. And I'll tell you what.
Oh, dude, this is something
it's been
I have...
very emotionally satisfying for you to do so. Thank you.
Yeah, I have discovered this about baking, that for me, it's like 50% making it, right? Like just the act of making it is half of the reason I'm there. 25% is getting compliments, and then the remaining 25% is actually eating it. It's like, it is not even the plurality of value, I think,
sure.
in terms of doing this.
And the problem is, since I live alone, I'm just having to like take pictures and send them to people.
Yeah, my 3.5-year-olds are not as appreciative. Well, they're kind of appreciative. They're not appreciative in the moment, but then they do come back and they're like, hey, could we have more of like that thing? And that feels good. So here's my Bun Vulcan update. It's actually, I made it for your birthday when you came over. And it was an idea I had. I was really pleased about this because this is the first time I've done this, which is like I sort of had a concept that didn't fully exist in the world. And I was like, okay, I think I can kind of make this work. And I did. And here's what it was. It's a tres leches brioche. I don't know why I said it to you as though it was a surprise, because you've already eaten it.
Yes.
So
And we've already discussed it earlier.
Yeah, it was a tres leches brioche, and it turned out really well. Here is the only thing that I would say. If you were going to follow in my footsteps and make a tres leches brioche, here's why I thought it would work. Because I was like, oh, brioche is a lot sturdier than cake, and so it will hold up better, and it won't be quite as, like, mushy, right? Like, it will maintain a lot more tooth even while it is soaked in this, like, delicious tres leches mixture. I was totally correct about that. That was spot on. Well done, Dave. What I did not think about was the fact that because it has a much denser structure, it takes a lot longer to soak. So I only soaked it. Yeah, I only soaked it for like a few hours. And so like there was a ring of saturation around the outside. And then we just cut it and you like poured the rest of the custard over. It's not really like custard. But if you were going to do this, you make the big brioche. And then I would almost recommend soaking it like overnight. I think would really be the move.
Yeah. Or keep some of the liquid to the sides, which is what we did, so you could like pour it on the individual slices after you've cut it.
Yes, that was a good patch at the end. I would have liked it better if it was all the way in. And also, brioche will absorb a lot more tres leches mixture than a cake will, per like mass, I guess. But it was delicious and it turned out really well, and I was super happy with it. So that's my that was my baking thing that I did recently.
Well then, Dave, what is our third star of the week?
Man, astonishingly, our third star of the week is Skyrim again, but it's something.
Oh, dude,
That's
all. That is what I did on my vacation. Is I like sat on my couch with an ice pack on my forehead, playing Skyrim. It was very comforting.
It's really good. So here is the new thing about Skyrim. So I have been playing the special edition, right, with the mods and everything. It's very cool. It's really reinvigorated the game for me. And the first time through, I was like, oh, there's this like Civil War plot line, right? And I was like, oh, I'll do Imperials first, like whatever. So I go to the Imperial plotline, and that's fine. And then I sort of get bored with that character, and I was like, oh, let me start a new character, and I'm going to make a Nord, right? A Nord in Skyrim, and I'll join the Storm. I'm assuming if at this point you know what I'm talking about. Sorry, Mom, I'm not going to explain like the whole backstory of this entire video game.
Right.
Anyways,
but at this point, Skyrim has been out for 20 years and everyone's played it 3 times. So.
Yeah. So I'm like, this time I'll go join the Stormcloaks and I'll be a Nord and fighting for Skyrim, right? Cool. So I go and join the Stormcloaks. And I gotta say, in 2011, it was like the Nords and Skyrim, and we're gonna go do the thing and kick out the Imperials. And it felt great. And now I'm listening to it again, a decade later, as an older and wiser man.
In a slightly different world,
in 2020, in a very different world in many ways, listening to it in 2020. And I gotta say, listening to Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak be like, Skyrim is the home of the Nords, and only the Nords, and we'll kick out anybody who isn't a Nord. I'm like, ooh, Ulfric, this did not
super
age
well, my Jarl.
I am now regretting taking this narrative path in the game. It feels real weird. And so I just did but I'm like, I'm already playing it. And I just did the first conquering of the city, Whiterun, and you go and you beat the Jarl and you take over the city. And they just keep doubling down. On how the only people that belong in Skyrim are these Nords, and we're gonna kick out everybody else, and they should never have been here in the first place. It's just not.
Yikes!
It's not great,
dude.
Yeah. What, Matt, is our 4th star of the? I'll let you know if it gets better. It probably won't.
David, the 4th star of the week.
Anyways, Matt, what's our 4th star of the week?
Yeah, I skipped over a bit of what I had when I was describing my vacation week, because I did spend a lot of time sitting on the couch with an ice pack on playing Skyrim. But there is something else that I did, and it's that I watched the Star Wars prequels again, which is something that I have not successfully completed in years. I've tried to watch them again and always just bounced off. Because, Star Wars prequels.
It's because they're very bad. Why would you do that?
Well, Dave, honestly...
Because it feels like you would already hurt your head pretty badly. Is that why?
Well, no. Here's what it is, I think. It's that I kind of wanted something to happen that week where I could hate it, but also be mad at somebody else for it existing. I could only be upset with myself for falling and hitting my head, right? That was just me being clumsy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when I was watching the Star Wars prequels, I'm like, there is one man that I can blame for this, and it's not me, and that feels great.
Okay, that's true. Now, you did choose to watch them, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, also, to be fair, I was listening to old episodes of the that Blank Check podcast back when they were a Star Wars podcast. And so there were commentary tracks that they had done that I was watching along with, which is maybe the only way to make them palatable. But man,
yeah,
like,
I feel like that definitely does make a big change.
those Star Wars prequels, like, you remember them as being bad, right? Okay, so here was the sort of mental journey that I went on. I was like, okay.
I do remember them definitely as being bad.
Movies are bad, right? But there's good stuff in the movies. And I haven't seen them in a long time. And I'm now older and wiser. And I realize that there's very few things worse in the world than, like, a young nerd who's mad about Star Wars. And I know that I was a young nerd mad about Star Wars. So this is going to be a great opportunity.
This is self-reflection. Like,
right.
We are recognizing, having been that dude.
Right. And, like, knowing, like, just how bad that energy is, I'm like, you know what? I am just going to, like, change my ways. I'm going to watch these movies, and I'm going to see the good in them. Like Luke Skywalker saw in his father at the end of Return of the Jedi. A good movie. But the problem, Dave, is that even though I have grown and changed, the movies are still the exact same ones that I saw before, and they're still just garbage.
Oh, dang. I was really hoping for a different end to that narrative.
Okay. Here's
what I wanted.
Here's my hack, Dave.
Okay, hit me.
Watch the first and last 15 minutes of all three movies. You'll get through it pretty quick, and those are the only parts of any of those movies where anything good happens. Like, turn on the movie, watch it while you can watch it, and then, like, as soon as you hit a scene where, like, this is bad, it doesn't get better again until the very end. And maybe if you skip all the terrible stuff in the middle, the stuff at the end won't feel as much like a slog.
You know, there are people who have done this, like, semi-professionally. I think Topher Grace did a version of this, and there's, like, the Phantom Edit, and they kind of hack up the movies and grab, like, bits and pieces of all of them, and they turn all three good movies into, like, one good one. Because, like, you got the Duel of the Fates.
Yeah, that's great. That's
like,
very
that's
good.
a classic. I'll just pull up the Duel of the Fates and watch it sometimes. The pod race scene
kind of rips.
Is a weird fit. It's a weird fit, but it's a banger of a scene.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the 4th star of the week. I watched them. You don't have to. Fast forward
They're
as
still
much as you
bad.
like. You know, there's some good lightsaber fights, but also there's too much lightsaber stuff in those movies to the point where by the end of it you're sick of lightsabers, which you should never be.
You should never be sick of. It has the same effect as, like, the Star Wars role-playing game. Number one piece of advice for Star Wars role-playing game:
don't play the Star Wars role-playing game.
No. It's an okay game. It's a lot of fun. Just don't let anybody be a Jedi. Not a secret Jedi. Not a Force. Nothing. No Force stuff at all.
What if they're not a Jedi, but they are, like, Force sensitive and they're trying to find a middle path, but they're not telling anyone about it?
Force adapts. Nothing. It's there as, like, a background, and maybe you see a Jedi or someone tries to kill you, but you are just like a smuggler. Like, that's the only way to play the Star Wars game.
Yeah, you want the version of the game that's like Star Wars role-playing game, oops, all smugglers.
Yes. What's our 5th star of the week?
Dave, our 5th star of the week is that I've mentioned before in the podcast that during the course of these unprecedented times, because I'm no longer, like, eating out all the time, I don't go to restaurants and just, like, order lunch in at the office anymore. I've dropped some pounds, right? A little more svelte than I had been, which is nice. Problem with that, and again, I think I've mentioned this before, is that pants don't fit right. And I've talked about buying some more pants, but then I remembered, Dave. That because specifically my jorts, my jorts were too loose, Dave, and you can't live life with a loose jort.
No, you can't. Well, you are. I've known you to be a jortsman.
Dave, I have long been a jortsman. Basically, I gave up on the idea of wearing shorts for a very long time. I was long pants only, exclusively. It was a thing.
That was an era for you. You just did not you didn't do short. Matt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm laughing in the background because this is here's a life pro tip. If you are ever having a sad time, here's what you do. Here's how
Why
you
would you have one
it's
of
not
those,
going to
Dave?
fix all your problems. Matt, you can't bring me down, and I'm about to tell you why. It's not going to fix all of your problems, but here's what you do. Go to Google, do an image search, and search for the phrase Kevin Smith huge jorts. and the image that comes up. And I like Kevin Smith. Like, I am a fan of this dude's work. I have seen, I think, everything he's ever made. And I am telling you that these gigantic jorts are the funniest thing Kevin Smith has ever put into the universe. If you could look at this picture of these, they're not even, they're like floods. It's like they're like Jinkos, but he just cut off like the bottom. They're not even shorts. They're like, he cut off like the bottom 6 inches of these things. They come like 2 inches above his ankle. If you could look at this picture and and not laugh, you need to tell your handler to reboot your AI brain because you have failed the Turing test. This is part of it. Are you laughing at Kevin Smith's huge jorts? If not, you're a robot, and they need to reset you.
Truly wonderful.
Sorry, man. please continue.
So I was I was in the mood for a fresh jort, and I remembered, Dave, that I have in my closet. Basically, I haven't thrown out a pair of jeans like in my adult life. Just in my closet, in a laundry bag, I have a complete archive of every jean I've owned since I was like 21 years old. Just a jeans archive.
A jarchive.
A jarchive. Yes, a jarchive, if you will. So
Matt, I know. Is this okay? Is this your weird? This is your museum contribution at some point, isn't it? Because like this is a conclusion I've come to about museums. Is that like 90% of museums is like one weirdo saved something, and he saved like 5,000 versions of it, and everyone was like, why does that person have 5,000 jeans? Why does that person own every pair of jeans that they've ever owned for the last 70 years? But then they give it to a museum, and the museum is like, we never would have thought of the historical significance of 70 years worth of one dude's jeans, but it turns out...
But here we go.
Here we go. It's the Matt Jerns Gene Jarchive. It's the Jarchive.
So I keep them for 2 reasons. One is that like that is the one part of my life where I let my like weird sentimentality hoarder brain like do its business. Because
that's
like,
good. You give it some parameters.
Exactly. I allow it to exist in that one spot, and then I don't let it take over the rest of my life. Because the thing about jeans is that it's like, it's not like a shirt, right? Like you have a rotation of shirts. If I look at an old shirt, I'm like, oh, I remember the time of my life that I had that shirt in the rotation. But jeans are like your everyday wear. Like you're just wearing, like unless they're in the laundry right now, you're always wearing the same jeans. At least I am.
I was going to say, my understanding is that other people do rotate their jeans, but I do not.
Yeah. So, you live in your Levi's. And so when I see that pair of jeans, it's like, oh, that is like just holding that pair of jeans is like, well, now I'm time traveled back to 2008 because I remember like the wear pattern on these jeans and like what was in my pockets that made them that way. Anyway, all of this is to say that I have a bunch of old jeans, and I remember that back when I was in grad school, I weighed about what I do now, and I had jeans that fit me then. So I'm like, oh, I'll just go into the archive, pull out an old pair and jort the jeans. So I pull them out.
There you go.
And I'm preparing to jort them, right? And then I realize, Dave, they're pre-jorted. I jorted them last year and just completely forgot about it because I refiled them because I realized when I put them on that I had gained enough weight since grad school that they no longer fit. So now I got the good feeling of putting on an old pair of pants that fit well, and I didn't have to deal with jorting the jeans. And top it all off, $2 in the front pocket, cold hard cash. Nice day,
Nice.
Matt. Happy early birthday. This was before my birthday. Anyway, that's all there is to say about that. Which I feel... I don't know why I don't end more sentences on the podcast with "that's all there is to say about that." I'm very often trying to find a good way to sort of find an off-ramp for a story, and I can't always do it. I should just give up like that sometimes.
Matt, you got all sorts of options. You could go with a "that's all she wrote." You could do a very bad Porky Pig impersonation. Because no one does a good one. You could say "that's the way the cookie crumbles."
I could Paul Harvey it and say that's the rest of the story. And Dave, speaking of stories, we got one. It's episode 15 of Denji Sentai Megaranger. It is called See Through It, the Mecha of Genius High. Written by Shigeru Yanagawa, which is a name we have not seen on this before.
Okay, cool. It's a good episode.
Original air date.
Good for you.
Original air date, May 25th, 1997. Of course, you can watch along on the DVDs or stream it from shoutfactory.tv. Recommend it. Megaranger is good. We will prove that to you with our words when we return. Dave, welcome back. The show's good.
It is good. It's real good.
I mean, what more to say, right? It's a good show.
No, I think
we nailed it.
I think we can call it there.
All right, dudes.
Catch
well,
you guys next week.
No. Let me say my spiel. Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you want to listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. It's like a little tongue twister with too many R's in it. Anyway, no, we're going to talk about the
fun.
episode.
Okay, so we open up with the Rangers minus Shun. They are in like the sort of faculty administrative area.
Yeah,
and
they've been called into the principal's
carpet.
office.
Yeah, and we open up with this scene kind of in media res, and if I'm using that phrase correctly, right?
I assume.
Well, now I feel like I gotta check.
I have no reason to distrust you. Anyway, yeah, so they've been called into the principal's office. And he is informing them that the Digital Research Club is being dissolved. Now, they are surprised, shocked, dismayed even. And they say, like, why would you do such a thing, Mr. Principal? We're all honor students, you know.
He's like, you know why.
Right.
And then they're like, no, we don't. And he says, listen, here's the deal. He says, this club has been around for a while. And normally the members of the Digital Research Club are a club and have events and do the school's like web page.
Yeah.
And you guys don't do any of that.
Right. He pulls up the school's webpage, and the most recent update to it is a thing that says Happy New Year, which is the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And then he says, what you guys do instead, and then he pulls out like a manila folder full of pictures. And it's pictures of them.
No, Dave, it's not even that.
Off.
He pulls it up on the computer. He has been doing
that's
like
right.
computer surveillance of them. Which I guess means that there are like a series of webcams set up in that room.
I don't
like
know.
Surveillance?
Kenta does ask. He's like, it's creepy that you have these. Like, this is very weird.
It's also weird because like that is the room that they use as their superhero secret base when they're not up like on Galaxy Mega's like satellite base, or I guess the satellite base that turns into Galaxy Mega.
Yeah.
So like theoretically, the principal could say, "Hey, you know what's weird?
I have noticed
is how you guys keep talking to someone on the computer about how you are all superheroes and need to run off and do a bunch of secret things."
Speaking of, he does say, also, we're having gigantic phone and electricity bills. Like, who are you calling?
Right.
And they're like, oh, ugh.
And Kenta almost says like, oh, this is all Dr. Kubota's fault because we are like hopping on the modem to like 1997 Skype our scientist friend in space. But he is thankfully stopped before he spills the beans.
Yeah. So he says, listen, I am dissolving your club. Like, this is like, no, we're just not doing this anymore. And Koichiro says, no, wait. we haven't done any of that other stuff because we have been working on a giant new project / report. And the vice principal says, great. I will call that bluff. I want to see that report by tomorrow or I'm eliminating the Digital Research Club. Like, that's it.
Yeah. Koichiro, because he's an overachiever, he's like, okay, you've called my bluff, but I'm going to do it because I am Koichiro.
Yeah.
The student man.
So they exit and they're looking around.
You know that's the superhero that he wanted to be, was Koichiro, the student man.
I may be graduate man, but yeah, he definitely.
Honestly, don't think so.
Not sure
I think
about
he's
that.
much more invested in being a good student than he is in whatever he will be doing after he graduates. Like, later he's going to be a lawyer, I guess, but I don't think he will ever enjoy being a lawyer as much as he currently enjoys being a student. That's the vibe I get.
Being in school was way better than having to figure out what you were going to do after school.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do with all of your school learning? You're going to use it to do
don't
good
worry
at
about
school. It. You're already there. You're already doing the thing.
You're doing the thing, guys. So they leave this office and they're looking around. They're like, we don't know where Shun is. And Koichiro's like, we got to get moving on this project. And Kenta just says, well, I clearly am not going to be of any help in this. So I'm going to go. And nobody disagrees with him because they all know that he's right. But they do say we need Shun because Shun is the guy who does all the graphics, right? Like, that's his thing.
Right. So if
now,
they're going to make
where
this
is
report
Shun?
look good, they got to get that Shun.
Now, where is Shun? You may be asking.
He is at a different high school. He has gone to Gojoin High School. We see him walking into it. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Gojyoin. In case any of you were like really concerned about that for some reason.
It seems almost impossible that would be true. But
so he had gotten an email from an old buddy of his, Soichi, saying like, hey, there is something weird going on at my school and I can't figure it out. I'd love to have another pair of eyes on it. Come visit the school and like help me sort of poke around.
Yeah. So Shun has arrived there. Now, before he actually gets in, he sees there's a dude with like a lab coat and like a weird... It's a Sentai MacGuffin detector is
right.
what it is. Like, you know exactly what it looks like.
It's like you took a metal detector and strapped a bunch of extra nonsense to it.
Yeah, so he sees Shun, and he goes, ooh, surprise face, and then he runs away. And then we meet Suichi, and he's like, who's that? Suichi says, oh, that's a physics teacher. Like, that dude works here. Like, it's not weird that dude is here. He does work here.
He's just a weird guy.
Weird. Yes. And Shun, so here's kind of the relationship between Suichi and Shun. And I think this is actually very cool, because this gives us some character insight into Shun, which is... they knew each other clearly from like elementary school or middle school or something, like before high school. And this high school is like an elite high school. They say like, this is a high school for geniuses. And Shun, like I'm sort of condensing some stuff from other parts in the episode, but Shun like super looks up to Suichi. He's like, oh man, a genius like you, I can't believe you'd be stressed about anything. Like you're so smart, blah, blah, blah. Suichi turns around to Shun, who he has called, like, to come help him with this, and at some point says something to the effect of, like, you know, you really should, like, you should have applied here. Like, you definitely could have been doing this with us.
Yeah.
And I think that tells us some cool stuff about Shun, which is, like, Shun and Koichiro are, I think, are, like, clearly the two smartest, right, of the Rangers, and Koichiro is like this really dedicated student, kind of along this particular vector, right? Like he's got this kind of vibe to him. And Shun is a really good student, but I think we can see in this episode sort of crystallizes, like he does not have the same, maybe academic confidence, I think is a good way to say it.
Yeah, maybe. But also like he's very dedicated. You know, like he said in an early episode, he has his life planned out like programmed like a computer, like planned for maximum efficiency. And so it is also possible that he was like, you know what? I maybe could go to that school and succeed, but what I really want to do is study like computer graphics, and that is like the sort of work that school excels at is not necessarily what I'm into.
Yeah,
maybe
that
he
is
used that as
true.
an excuse because he lacked confidence. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I dig it because I think it's cool. I think it's a way to take. It's a very Blue Ranger take on a smart dude, if that makes sense. Like if a Blue Ranger is going to be like this really smart character, which is cool. Like I think this is kind of the way that the Blue Ranger does it, because like the Blue Ranger tends to be a little more like, I don't know, interpersonal, emotional, nice guy sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Anyways,
although I would
I'm
not define Shun
tangenting
as a
little.
nice guy.
Well, yeah,
Shun's
okay,
a good
he is.
person. He is not a
He's
nice
a good
guy.
dude. He's he's nice. He's not nice to Kenta at the very least.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Shun says to Suichi, he's like, "What? Okay, like you emailed me to come over. What's the deal?"
And Suichi's like, listen, I know I emailed you, but honestly, like, we're all just really overworked here. I'm stressed out. I was feeling paranoid. It's actually nothing. I appreciate you coming, but there's not actually a problem. But, you know, while you're here, why don't you come check out my digital research club? Like, I'm the head of that club. You're in your club. Like, come see how we do it over at Genius School and, you know, hang out for a bit. You know, roll with the big
Shun's
boys.
Yeah,
And they-
Shun says, "Cool."
They go in, and immediately I was like, oh, this is what a digital research club is supposed to be. Not like 4 idiots in a... I mean, you know, 1 idiot and 4
Not
smart
idiots,
people.
but yeah.
You know, just like 4
Right.
people goofing around in a room together. Like, the club that the Mega Rangers are in is the sort of club that, like, I would have been in high school. You know? Like, the sort
Right.
of
It's
club
like-
where it was, like, me and 2 or 3 other people just, like, found an unoccupied room, and a couple of times a week we went in there to have quote-unquote politics club, which was
Right,
just
digital
us shirking
research
whatever...
club.
Yeah, just like shirking whatever else we were supposed to be dealing with that at that point of the day to like sit in this other room and pretend that we were smart. And like I
Right.
only found out a few months into the existence of the club that it was not a sanctioned club and it was just us sitting in a room.
We definitely did have some clubs like that, I'm pretty sure.
And so anyway, like that is sort of the vibe of the club that the Mega Rangers have, sort of. Although Kenta brings a lot of that along with him. You know, I'm sure they were a little more focused before he showed up. But this is like a room of like 8 people sitting at computers doing work, like real work.
Like really, yeah, like really intense.
Yeah, and what they're doing-
Suichi actually says.
Yeah, they're coming up with graduate school level problems and then sharing them amongst each other. Like, I will make an incredibly difficult, you know, math equation and I'll send it to you and you try to solve it. And then you make one and send it back to me.
Yeah. It's
Sounds
a pretty...
horrible.
Yeah, it does. It sounds pretty awful. So here's what we find out. Shun goes to do this thing, and as he like sits down, oh, that's right, because Suichi says like, here, like you should try. So Shun sits down, and as he sits down, he sees I was going to say subliminal. I think it's supposed to be a subliminal flash of a picture of Owl Nezare. It's an owl, but it's like Owl Nezare, obviously. Yeah. It's not a normal owl. It has teeth, which is and it's bipedal and it has teeth, so it's not a regular owl.
It kind of looks like an owl bear, honestly. From
It
Dungeons
does
and Dragons.
kind of look like an owl bear. Yeah. And Shun's like, that's weird. So we go from there to Nezare Dimension.
Yeah, and we discovered that this is a Shibbolena plan, which is great.
Yeah, of course.
What is weird about Shibbolena plans is this. Every single one of them is about like mind control, hypnotize, brainwash. Like it's all basically the same thing. And yet, it has not started to feel repetitive. Like it feels like she has an MO, but it doesn't feel like it's like, well, here's Shibbolena, she's just going to control somebody's brain again. Because the specifics are always different enough that it works, and I really appreciate that.
It is really cool. Dude, Shibbolena is Like, she's a great lieutenant.
Top-notch.
She's great. I like Ugande, although Ugande is more of like he's almost like more of a narrative device than a character.
Yeah, like Ugande is sort of like the punctuation. Like, you will have a sentence that is like a series of episodes of Shibbolena plans. And then like the exclamation point at the end of that sentence is a Ugande episode where he's like, I'm just going to go down there and punch the earth until it explodes. Which I really like about him.
Yeah, like he's a man, he knows what he wants to do.
And mostly what he wants to do is punch the Red Ranger. He needs to shoot lasers out of his eyes that make a laser grid version of his own head, and then that needs to shoot lasers out of its eyes and destroy someone. That is as complicated as Ugande gets.
Yeah. Listen, it's a good, it's a good plan if you can make it work. Which you can't, but whatever.
Right.
So, here is what the actual plan is, okay? Mm-hmm. Is that she is going to mind control all of these dudes, and then having mind controlled them, she's going to have them design... not she, Owl Nezare, under the direction of Shibbolena, is going to have them design a world-ending super weapon. Double bonus, it'll A, end the world, and B, the humans will be even more disheartened once they realize that it is their own genius that has been turned against them.
Yeah, and although I did say that all of her plans are like similar but not too similar, this is kind of the same as the B Nezare plan, right? Like, brainwash a bunch of scientists and use them to like... Oh, and it's also kind of... Okay, it's also kind of the same as the... what was the one with the ultimate life form? Where like they had genetically engineered a space manta ray person?
It was just, I don't think there was a monster for that one. Like, Shibbolena was just doing it on her own.
Anyway. Still very good.
So Dr. Hinalar said, Ugande's like, I don't like this plan. I want to go shoot eye blasts. And Hinalar's like, no, chill out. Like, we're going to do the Shibbolena thing. So, back down to the Digital Research Club. The fancy one, not the one that we know and love. And... Koichiro, like, shows up, and he knocks on the door, and he still, like, slides it open while Shun is working on this thing, and he gets Shun's attention, and is like, come over here. And Shun is, like, does the classic, like, points up at his own face and, like, raises his eyebrows, is like, what, me? Yeah, dude, you. Like, who else would he possibly be here to talk to?
Code doesn't go to this school. He is here to find you. You are the guy he hangs out with all day, every day. Who else in this room would he be waving to?
So he calls him out. Over, and he's like,
we got problems. The club is in trouble. Shun asks how he found him, and Koichiro is like, oh, well, I read your email, and I knew that there was a problem. Shun is not thrilled about this, but we don't really explore it.
So, then Shun does something really dumb, which is, instead of saying, oh, hey, we're alone, hey, fellow secret superhero, I came here to check out something weird, and then when I sat down at this computer, there was a subliminal owl on it, and everyone's acting real weird, so I'm going to stick around and check it out, because I also am a super secret technological-based superhero. He doesn't say, and then Koichiro would say, sounds great. I'll inform Dr. Kubota, our boss, and the rest of the team, and we will take care of this problem. None of that happens. What Shun says is, listen, man, I got my own stuff to deal with. Like, take a hike, nerd. And then Koichiro's like, what? I don't even know why we're having this conversation, but he does leave.
Okay, so here I think is to the extent that this episode has a weakness, and I do think it's a good episode, I think that the weakness of it kind of starts here and centers around what you were just talking about, which is that, as we know, since it is a Shibbolena episode, it is a mind control hypnotism episode, right?
Right.
And so, at various points throughout the episode, it is frustratingly unclear as to when and to what extent Shun has had his mind tampered with. So, like, right now, Shun is acting weird, but maybe he's acting weird because he's partially under the control of this owl monster. But, like, it's never actually, like, they don't ever actually make that abundantly clear to us, so we're kind of having to connect some dots on our own. Which, in the course of, like, a 22-minute episode with a giant monster, is not something that they should be asking us to do.
It is kind of a weird one, but... okay, like, whatever. So, the physics teacher, we do cut a quick shot of him. He's still kind of, like, trying to check things out.
Yeah. Shun sort of, like, chases after him, but the physics teacher gets away. Yeah.
So they're in the lab, and the lights are flickering, and then Owl Nezare just, like, shows up. He's in the screen. That's what it is. And they all see him, and he's like, my chosen ones, he literally just says, use your brains for evil. Yeah. Which I love in its directness. Yeah, he knows what he's about.
Right. He wants them to all to design an ultimate weapon so that he can use that to destroy the world. Shun comes in, sees them all, like, in sort of a trance, hears them chanting for the Nezare, and is like, oh, this is not great. Goes over and grabs his friend Suichi and, like, shakes his shoulders and is like, hey, you need to snap out of this, please, right now. He manages to do that, but before they can get to any of the other people, Owl Nezare appears in the monitor of the screen and shoots eye lasers out of the monitor towards Shun and Suichi that they just barely avoid getting blown up by, and then they just run out of the room.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm into it.
They see the physics teacher again, and they start running after him because they're like, okay, something weird is going on here, and this is the guy around here who we have seen being weird. It's probably his fault. So they're chasing after him.
Oh, Matt, we inadvertently skipped a little bit of a scene here. So we jump back to the Digital Research Club, and Koichiro is trying to do the report that he promised that they already had done. Nobody else is doing anything.
Yeah,
by himself.
The idea, I thought, was that all of them were going to work on it, and even then they still needed Shun's help. What is actually happening is that
I think that
Kenta,
probably...
Yeah, like Kenta and Miku and Shisato are all just sitting around. Maybe Miku and Shisato realize that they can't finish it without Shun, and they don't want to just, like grind themselves into
beat their
dust.
heads into a wall. Yeah, Koichiro is 100% willing to do that.
Oh, Koichiro was born to grind himself into dust doing schoolwork. Student man.
They're like, listen, man, this is not even going to... They even say, actually, that's a good point, Matt, because they say, this isn't going to work because you can't do graphics. And he's like, yeah, actually I can. And then, of course, he turns around and predictably, it is cartoonishly bad.
Yeah.
So Dr. Kubota calls... and he starts to tell them some stuff, and Kenta interrupts him. And he's like, we don't have time for your thing. I got a bone to pick with you, old man, which is our phone bill is way up because you keep calling us, and they're going to, like, cancel my hanging out and eating snacks club. And this is unacceptable. Right. Dr. Kubota gives him a look. I don't know best how to describe it except to say that I have given it to students, and if you were ever a bit of a knucklehead with a teacher, they probably gave you this look. So you probably know the one I'm talking about. And what I love about this is that Dr. Kubota does not engage with it at all. Like, he gives him the look and then completely moves on, which is that I really dig that Dr. Kubota is just like, he believes in the power of youth. He likes these guys, but he is also very cognizant of the fact that he's working with teenagers.
Yeah.
like when Kenta demands Special Calby in order to go be a superhero. Did I already talk about this? When he demands Special Calby to go be a superhero, Dr. Kubota does not argue with him. He just, like, you can tell that he's already had the debate in his head of, like, I could go through this giant thing with Kenta and try to convince him that he should just go be a superhero because he's a hero and the world needs saving. Or I could spend $10 on Calby and skip this entire problem. And that's
Right,
that's definitely worth the $10.
Like, we are in a hurry, and I am an adult with a salary. Like, let's just move on from this.
Yeah. So he's like, he just says, listen, there's a Nezare report at this school. It's where Shun is. You guys need to go check it out. So they do. We go from there down to the boiler room of this of the other
high
school.
I forget what the name. I don't have the name is written down far enough back in my notes that I will not find it.
Yeah. Now this is another in the ongoing saga of Dave and Matt's weird / great / kind of janky high school. I have very fond memories of high school boiler rooms. Here's why. When I was a high school senior, somebody, I don't know who, donated like some old weightlifting equipment to our school, and they didn't have any place to put it, so they just put it down in the boiler room. And my buddy Jared and I don't know how he knew about it, but he had found out about it, and he was like, dude, we should start lifting weights. So we somehow got permission to go down into the school's boiler room completely unattended and lift weights, and also convinced the principal that this should count as going to gym class. And so we got excused from gym to just go lift weights in a boiler room by ourselves. Now, we did in fact lift weights in the boiler room. Like, we weren't lying, but we could have been. Anyways.
Yeah. Could have been a real politics club.
It could have been.
Which actually Jared was also part of.
Club. Dude, Jared was part of everything at that school.
Anyway, where were we? We're in the boiler room. So
they're down in the boiler room.
They find the physics teacher, and there's a really interesting confrontation. Because Shun is like, you obviously are a monster. And he grabs him, and he throws him on the ground. And then he realizes that it's just a physics teacher that he has thrown on the ground and not a monster. And then the physics teacher starts accusing Shun of being the monster. And this is what I think is very cool, right? Because he has this like device, this, detector of some sort. And when he points it at Shun, he's like, listen, you do not give off the normal readings that a human gives off. Like, I know what a baseline human looks like when I point this at him, and that's not you. So clearly, you are the one who is the monster here. But Shun, like, can't say, oh, well, it's because I'm a Megaranger.
No.
He just has to be like, no, I'm pretty sure you're the one who's the problem.
So,
He is blissfully saved from this awkward moment because we realize that in some hard-to-define way, Suichi has been, like, possessed by Owl Nezare. And when I say possessed by, I don't just mean, like, it's in his head. I mean, like, there's a moment...
It's like riding shotgun.
Right. It just, like, it teleports out of his body and then zaps people with eye lasers.
Yeah. And that's about to happen, but Shun sees him and then immediately shifts into, like... What's the chant like for the Nezare? He flips into like hypno chant mode, right? And
which is different than Hitmonchan mode.
Yes. I always felt like I would like the fighting style Pokemon. They seemed cool. Anyways, so Owl Nezare is like, oh, great. I must have already mind controlled that dude. Like, you keep doing your evil work there, big brain.
Yeah, he's like, when I start to brainwash somebody, it always happens eventually. And I guess I finally got him.
Okay, so now we get a really kind of a weird take from Owl Nezare, which is this. He's like, he turns to the physics teacher and he's like, I thought you were such like a dummy. I didn't bother mind controlling you. Now maybe it looks like you're smart. Which is like you came to a genius high school and mind controlled a bunch of kids who are geniuses, and then thought to yourselves, surely the adult who teaches these children, that dude isn't worth... Like, that's just a weird take, Owl Nezare.
Okay, one of two things is happening here. Either the writer of this episode has made has made an error and has, like, just like didn't think through everything all the way, or the episode author is genius because he knows that this is a show for kids and teens, and kids and teens always think they're smarter than their teachers.
Okay, man, that's a really good point. What do you think about that? See? You only have your own perspective. Anyways, so, Shun is typing, and then the other Rangers show up, and Shun, it turns to Owl Nezzer and he says, "These three," he excludes Kenta, "are very smart, and, like, you should mind control them."
Yeah, Owl Nezari at this point is like, listen, normally I do a whole thing. I show you pictures while you're, like, doing math problems, and I take over your mind, like, over time. But we're sort of in the middle of this thing. I got all these people making this, like, weird, like, 3D printing this weird CGI image of a gun.
Oh, yeah. So by design a super weapon, what they mean is watch the same 15 seconds of, like, early CGI kind of on a loop of a weapon being constructed.
Yeah, it's not great. And actually, when they do design, like, a prototype, and, like, Owl Nezzer is like, listen, I could use this to disintegrate, like, a cat, but that's not enough. Like, you need to start from scratch. And when he says start from scratch, he means we've already created, like, the CGI and prop assets for this, so make the same thing twice, but this time
better
make it
now.
good.
Yeah. So
So anyway, Owl Nezzer is like, listen, we don't have time to do, like, my full subliminal hypnotism. I'm just going to zap you with eye lasers until you submit. It's looking bad for those 4 Rangers, and obviously still looking bad for Shun, who is brainwashed. Or is he?
Or is he? You probably can guess where this is going. So the weapon is about to come together, and just as it comes together, it explodes. And Owl Nezzer is like, what could have possibly happened?
And there's like
and
a
then
quick
Shun's
zoom in on Shun, and he smiles, and he's like, aha, I got you.
Yeah.
And also
He's
the
like, "You're
files,
so-"
the files that were
this is great.
designed to create the gun, like, delete themselves.
That I thought was a really good touch. I did like that. So
Shun was acting, but in a very confusing way. Because it's not that Shun has somehow avoided being brainwashed. It's that he has freed himself from the control. How, might you ask? Was it because he has superpowers? Because he's so smart?
It's not. It's also not that. What he says is, I have good eyesight, and I released myself a long time ago.
Yes.
So somehow, power.
If your eyes are quick enough, you can unhypnotize yourself from subliminal images. Science.
Science. That is definitely how it works. So, from there, they get they install, and then there's a pretty quick fight in human form. Owl Nezzer starts off being invisible, and that works for like a second, and then they start tagging him, and Owl Nezzer says, well, this sucks.
I do like a bit right before he goes giant where because they're still in the boiler room area, and he tries to cave in the roof over them, and Shun, like, jumps and pushes Koichiro out of the way.
Oh, this is awesome.
And Koichiro is like, A, did not need your help. B, like, what are you doing, man? Are you trying to, like, make it up to me for being a jerk earlier by saving my life now? Like, that is very out of character for you, and, like, we don't need to go through all this rigmarole. And Shun is like, yeah, you got me. It was a little weird. It felt weird.
It felt
forced. And then they just go back to fighting. It's extremely good.
So from there, it's pretty quick. There is a great Shun moment. So they summon Galaxy Mega, and there is a cool moment where they're getting blasted with lightning, and they're like, how are we going to counter this? Like, we don't have a version of that.
Right, we have no way to stop
Shun
his
says,
like mind control eye lasers.
Yeah. And Shun says, I know what we can do. And he does like some quick programming, and this programming somehow turns their big shield into a mirror, and then they
with programs.
Yeah, and then they kind of blast him with his own eye lasers, and then then that's basically the end of Owl Nezzer.
Yeah, when he is defeated, everybody wakes up. Everyone who had been brainwashed all kind of like come to, and are like, oh yes, What a weird day.
Yeah, Soichi wakes up in the basement, cradled in the arms of his teacher with no memory of what happened or how we got there. And doesn't question that at all.
And then we don't talk about it. So we cut back to their regular high school, not the fancy high school. And they're in their digital research club, and they're like, yes, we are all working together now. We're going to finish this report. We're going to save the club. Like, Kenta and Miku and Shisato come back, and they've got snacks and drinks, and they're like, okay, now we are, like, prepared to work through the night to make this happen. Shun is, like, you know, he's tired from a long, hard day, but he's really putting in the work. And they're all very encouraged until they look over and realize that Shun has fallen asleep, passed out, like, on the keyboard with his finger on the delete key, and is like, in the process of erasing all of their work.
So that's the end of the Digital Research Club, I guess.
Or they'll never mention it again and everything will be fine. Well, Dave, that is the end of the episode. But of course, it is not the end of our episode, because first we need to determine where Owl Nezare lands in the Creature Royale.
Yeah, so you actually kind of mentioned this earlier in the episode, Matt, is he does bear a lot of similarities to B Nezare. So I feel like that's a good jumping off point. Like, A, they're both Nezare. They both are doing mind control stuff on smart people to induce them to somehow destroy the Earth. Now, B Nezare is up at spot 71. A, because he had a very good plan, and B, because he looked super dope.
Yeah, and he was, like, in space and stuff.
Yeah, Owl Nezare sort of looks like a sloppy owl bear.
Yeah, which is less great.
It is less great.
And he's getting high schoolers to do it instead of, like, adult established scientists.
Yeah. Also, the phrase sloppy owl bear, I don't know what it's a euphemism for, but it's definitely a euphemism for something. So I feel like we're going to start.
I was going to say, get at us in the, hit us up on Twitter and let us know. But
please don't.
I was going to say,
that
would be a mistake. Do not do that. If you think of something, keep it to yourself and never share it with anyone.
So I'm kind of looking down and, like, there's BB Donpa. Like, I feel like actually we got to kind of jump down this list for a bit to find some space for Owl Nezare. Because there's, like, Shiraniri the Ragman, and he's super cool. There's Oborogumura the Taxi Man, and he was just like a giant... Like, they built a go-kart into that dude's costume.
Okay, so the perpetual middle point of our list is the jewelry priestesses from Ranger. Better or worse than them?
Yeah. Not as good at them, although they are actually starting to trend up a little bit. They're no longer dead in the middle. Yeah, well, they're at spots number 86, and the list now goes to 186. So they're not... Well. They're not quite in the middle, but they're still a pretty good spot. So down below them, but, like, just below them is Tsunekake Baba the Sandwich with, like, the magic boobs, and Bakaneko the Cat Lady.
Okay, so what's your floor, I guess?
I think my floor is...
Like, at number 104, we have Karakasa, who is... another umbrella monster. It's not even the umbrella monster. It's another umbrella monster who was fine.
Okay. Bara can... I think it's Bara Clothes, actually. Because, like, Bara Kandama... Mm-hmm. Am I remembering him correctly? That's like the ball toy. And then, like, Bara Kandama, he's a giant wooden mecha... built like a children's ball toy. Like, that's rad. Like, that's cooler
good.
than Owl
And actually,
Nezare.
right above Barakandama are Kappa and Rokurokubi, who I'd actually
they're great.
Yeah, I'd kind of forgotten that we put them together. Okay, so let's... So is Barakandama your ceiling?
No, man, it might be. He's, like, right in there, because I like him better than... I like him better than Karakasa, the other umbrella, but I don't like him as much as Barakandama.
Okay, well then how do you like him... I don't know. I think he's better than Baravanish. Do you think he's better than Baravanish? Do you think he's better than Bara Clothes? Because that's... Is he in the top 100? Because Barakandama is... Oh, no, he's not in the top 100, because Barakandama
He's not.
Is
he's
number
not.
100.
I think he's just above Baravanish.
Okay. Okay, well, in that case, right above Baravanish puts him in the new number 101. And that, Dave, that is it for another episode of The Spy Who Loved Megaranger. Before we finish up here, I'd like to remind you all you can email the show at supersentaibrothers@gmail.com. If you want to get any updates on future episodes or check out the things that we're talking about on Twitter, we are at Super Sentai Bros. If you like the show, please remember that shining in the iTunes reviews section, there are 5 stars. Rate, review, subscribe on there. That's what's going to help new people find the show, or so we have been led to believe. The Super Sentai Brothers are a production of Retrograde Orbit Radio. If you'd like to listen to any of the other great Retrograde Orbit Radio shows, as I said at the top of the review, actually weirdly, you can find them all at retrogradeorbitradio.com. Once again, we are the Super Sentai Brothers. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week for the greatest show on Earth.